Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I hope you are starting off with a great day today. I am going to be talking about adding dimension in 100% varietal wines today. And so as a winery that makes a 100% single varietal, I often get told, well, blends are just so much more exciting. There's so much more dimension to them. They're more complex. And although, yes, I can say that blending does add dimension to a wine, there are definitely ways that 100% varietal wines can be exciting and complex. So when we choose to do a single varietal, there's other things that we can do, okay? So let's start off with like that blend. The typical blend or a very common blend is a GSM, right? So Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, these are three different wines. So when we blend those three different wines together, they do add dimension to the wine, right? So the Grenache is going to add some softness to the wine, some spicy notes, some berry flavors. The Syrah adds texture with some dark fruit, okay? And then the Mourvedre is going to add that earthiness, the body, the color. So as the consumer, when you're drinking that GSM, right, you're getting these three different kind of components coming in together. But as a single varietal wine, 100% single varietal wine, there's other things that we can do to make it complex, and it can be just as exciting as a blend, right? So first of all, one thing we can do is choose to harvest from different vineyard sites or regions, right? So we can take fruit in Paso, we can take fruit from the east side of Paso and the west side of Paso. Or we can go down towards Santa Barbara and choose fruit from down there, or north. And each of these varieties, even if it's Cabernet Franc, each of these vineyard sites are going to add a different dimension to how that Cabernet Franc is developed. And then if we blend all of these areas together, then we're going to have a complex wine. We're going to have complexity, dimension into that wine, right? So a warmer climate wine is going to have higher alcohol, riper flavors, but lower acids. A cooler climate is going to contain like tart flavors, maybe a little bit unripened flavors, higher acidity, lower alcohol. So if we are blending these together, that's going to add to the complexity of that 100% varietal. Now, another option is by using different barrels. Now, we have lots of different ways of doing different barrels. So even if we're taking a 100% Cabernet Franc and we are going to keep them separate and we're going to put them in different barrels, right? And they're going to age in these different barrels. Each barrel is going to give its different component to it. So French oak has a tighter grain and it's going to give off sweeter flavors such as dark chocolate or coffee. American oak is going to impart less tannins and then its French counterpart, and it's going to give vanilla flavors and sweet spices. Okay, so these, if we keep some Cab Franc in American oak, some in French oak, that's going to add complexity. If we use new oak versus neutral oak and we keep them separate and then we blend, that's going to change how that wine in that barrel is aging, and that's going to allow us to add complexity to that wine. Now, continuing with the barrel concept, right, we can also add, maybe instead of just doing it all in barrel, we can do some in stainless steel. So now some of the Cab Franc or whatever varietal we're talking about is going to be aged in barrel, and it's going to have a certain amount of oxygen come in, and it's going to age at a different rate than the stainless steel, because stainless steel doesn't allow for the exchange of oxygen. So aging is going to take longer, and it allows the wine to mature without reducing that bright and fruity aroma. So blending these two are going to give a different dynamic to that wine, adding to that complexity. And even further with the barrels, right, we can age in large barrels or smaller barrels, okay? Barrels come in different sizes, and so depending on which of these barrel sizes we use, right, it's going to change the amount of surface area that the wine in volume is in ratio to the oxygenation of that flow into that barrel. So depending on the size of the barrel, that wine in that barrel is going to age at a different rate. So now we have different rates of aging. We blend them together and we're going to have a complex wine. Now, the cool thing, another cool thing that we can do is the use of clones. So over the years, vines are going to adapt to their location, to their climate, to their terrain, right? Because we all know if you don't adapt, you die off. So as the vines get older and they need to adapt increases, then their genes are going to mutate. And I know I got geeky on the last one, so I'm not going to go too far down that rabbit hole this time. But as these genes mutate, sometimes they're beneficial, right? So they can include the change in ripening time or the flavor profile. And when these mutations are deemed positive to us humans, we then cultivate them and we let them grow and we allow this new variety to kind of come about. But since it's still Cabernet Franc or it's still Cabernet Sauvignon or Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot Noir, it's the same species, it's just a different modification of that original. So it's not a new variety, it is deemed a clone. So we have loads of different clones that are available to us. And each clone, because it's been, because those genes have mutated, they react to that environment differently and they have different profiles. So this is an image, thanks to the Lange twins, of 3 different clones of Pinot Noir. I kind of think that Pinot Noir is the best known variety that goes by its clones, okay? So the first official French clone of Pinot Noir was actually released in 1971. And there are over 40 different clones of Pinot Noir. So if that winemaker in their vineyard site have 40 clones of Pinot Noir in their vineyard and they harvest all 40 of them and they blend those 40 together, that's going to be an extremely complex wine, right? Probably too complex. There's going to be a lot of this going on, okay? But so for example, right, the French Chamber of Agriculture, they say that the clones 114 and 115 were grown for their perfume and their structure, while clone 777 is finesse and power. And so by blending these clones of Pinot Noir together, they're going to add dimension to the wine, right? So we can still have a 100% Pinot Noir, but it can be so dramatic, so complex and diverse inside of how, because these clones just express themselves differently. So as with so many articles that I've written or I've talked about on Get Live with Dracaena Wines, right, it all comes down to the winemaker's vision. What wine style are they trying to attain? So depending on the winemaker's inspiration, they have an arsenal of processes that we can call upon to make that well-balanced, structured, and dynamic wine. So the next time you see a single varietal wine, don't just assume it's a simple wine because it's one single varietal. We can do so many things to it to make it so complex, so balanced, so delicious that it can battle any blend that is out there. So think about the next time you have a single varietal and you actually sit and taste it, think about that complexity that is coming in on your palate, and maybe you can figure out what that winemaker did in order to allow that to happen. So anyway, I thank you for spending your Tuesday with me, or if you are watching this at a later time, I hope you enjoyed this live, and I will see you next week. If you have any topics that you would like me to cover, please leave it in the comments, and please let me know what you think about this. Save it for future, and I will talk to you soon. Okay? Have a great Tuesday, and sláinte.